In this lesson, we're going to see how we can add and create our own custom brush, like the one we see here. I just randomly made this into a custom brush, and we're going to see how we can, one, create this easy design using just the pen tool or the brush tool or anything you like, and two, turn certain elements into a brush, stroke, and also a texture. So it's going to be really handy if you're planning on maybe using the same texture a lot of times or the same shape as we see here. Sometimes for illustrators who have a certain series, they have a lot of these brushes. Sometimes their character heads are the brush, maybe they're the texture on their shirt. So you don't always have to redraw every time. And also you would be saving yourself a lot of time by just making your brush presets, because instead of having to, let's say I was trying to draw this heart, instead of drawing this heart a bunch of times, as you can see I can't get the sizing right. I have to just experiment, and they're not looking the same as the heart that I want. So if I create a brush, I can just create thousands of these strokes and make them all look identical. Okay, let's get started. We're going to start with the easiest thing, which is just using your own drawings to make them into a brush. I'm going to make a new layer, and using my brush tool, I will make a, let's see, what should we make? Let's make a kite. So I will try to be as precise as I can. And I'll just draw a kite just over there. And let's add a little tail. Let's make the tail a little smaller. Alright, let's say this is my shape. What I have to do is to just grab it using anything. You can use the lasso tool or the marquee tool. Just grab that selection and make sure it's on a separate layer. Then go to Edit, come down to Define Brush Preset. Hit that once, give it a name, let's write Kite, and then hit OK. There's our brush. Hit Ctrl D once you're finished, and then you can create as many brushes as you want. And with every single click it will be lighter. We will fix that in another, we'll fix that soon. And then we also have this option to kind of drag it, but as you can see, it's not that smooth. We're going to see how we can fix this soon as well. Alright, so what if you wanted to use the pen tool? You wanted a more precise shape. I will go and try to make a random shape. Let me turn this off. Let's draw a house with the pen tool. You can use any tool that you want. You can use a shape tool, the pen tool, and it really doesn't matter what you're drawing. Just close that. I'm going to add some details so you guys can see what those details will look like once we turn them into a brush. I will also use the ellipse tool to make some windows. So as you can see, I'm using a collection of tools to draw my shape. There's my house, just position it. But one thing that you have to remember is that you cannot turn a shape when it's a shape in the format of a shape. You cannot turn that into a brush. You have to rasterize it first. So I have a bunch of shapes. What I can do, you cannot merge them, because if you do, you see it all goes away. You can hit Ctrl G or this folder down here, right click, merge group. And now I have a singular shape. If I go with my marquee tool, go to Edit, Define Brush Preset, call it House. I now have a house. Before you draw, you have to Ctrl D. I now have a house brush. Right, so we saw this. Let's move on to another thing. And with the same thing with the kite, you can drag it like this, but you won't get a good result because the spacing is off. We'll see how we can fix that. Now, if you want to use an element, let's say a lightning strike, fire, water, snow, or anything like that, you would first have to download a really high quality image of those elements. I'm going to open one. I got mine from Adobe Stock. There it is. It's going to take a while. There it is. And if you look at the image size, it's like, let's go for pixels. It's like, it's 3000 by almost 3000. If you look at, oops, I drew something. If we look at this, there isn't an image. You can see that it's 8000 by 1000. And this is still not as high quality as it should be. You should usually go for around 5000 pixels and above. But right now I just downloaded this, so the lesson won't get too laggy. Right. I'm going to make a layer underneath just so I can see things better. I'll make that layer black as well. Or actually, let's go for like a dark blue. Alright, I have this layer. In order to get rid of the black background, you would think that maybe we should use the magical eraser tool, but as you can see, the edges are not clean. And we can't use a blending mode because we want this to be a separate selection. So if I just change the blending mode, you can see it does not look that good. Hit Ctrl Z. So what we have to do is to change the blending options, not the blending modes, the options. Double click on your layer till you see this panel. On the blending options, go to this layer because we're trying to change the current layer and not layer 0. So just stick with this layer. Make sure you are on gray. And then just bring that back and you can see immediately it's gone. But as you can see, when I start to pull it away, we do have some sharp edges that we need to remove. So we want to kind of make it gradual so we have the details around it. Hold down Alt and click once on this so you can separate the two and just keep going until it is enough. And now you can see there's no more blacks in the selection. We zoom in. It's a perfectly clean cut. And we didn't have to change the blend mode. You can see it's normal. If I turn that off, it's just the element itself. Alright, now to turn this into a brush, I need to, like we said, get the marquee tool or the lasso tool. You can choose whatever you want, but don't use the quick selection. I'll grab this, just make a selection of it all, and then go to Edit, Define Brush Preset, let's call it Fire. Hit OK, and now I have a fire brush. Control D. Let's turn that off for a second. Make the background, let's make it black. And then I'll use a blue brush to show you guys the details in this. You can see that it has all the details. It looks really cool. And I can make a red one, maybe this peach color. And if we drag it, we get a bad option. But it's a really cool thing. Let's try another flame. I will delete this. Let's try, I'll use the marquee tool this time. Let's try this guy. Go on layer 0, edit, brush, define brush preset, fire 2. Alright, there's our fire 2. Control D, go to the first layer, or layer 2. Well, hit G on your keyboard to get the bucket tool, make it black again, or any color you like. Make a new layer. Hit B on your keyboard to go to brush, and now we can make some really cool flames. This is great for illustrations, maybe some Photoshop work, or anything else that you want to work with. Alright. Now we are going to, before I move on to how we can fix the spacing, we're going to look at another scenario, which is, I'll close this, which is textures. I'm going to open another image. I downloaded this marble image. And let's say if you're illustrating and you want to add some marble texture on the illustrated table, you can do this and save it as a brush or a texture, but for now we're going to stick with a brush. So what we are going to do is to hit Control L on our keyboard on that layer. And first we're going to kind of lighten up the whites so we can get rid of the background. We do not want those at all. We just want the lines. And we're going to kind of darken the blacks as well. Kind of bring the contrast there. Alright, so we kind of intensified the lines as we said. This way it will be easier to make a brush out of it. Now once we've done this, I need to desaturate my brush. So just go to Image, Adjustments, Desaturate. We're not looking for color, we just want it to look like that. And I'll go back to hit Control L again, and to just make, I'll just make things a little better. Not too intense, I would say maybe somewhere around here. Hit OK. Alright, so we have this. If your background is darker, like instead of this you were seeing something like this, make sure you hit Control or Command I to turn it the other way. Because if you have this, you're going to get these as a brush and not the lines. So make sure you invert it, and this is what you're seeing. You're seeing the lines over a white area. Now, the thing about sizes, it's really important because brushes cannot be larger than 1500 pixels. So we need to minimize the image size, because if it is more than 1500 pixels, it's going to be a pattern. If you go in Edit, you can see it's Define Pattern and not Brush Preset. So we will go to Image, go to Image Size, Pixels, and just make 1500. This is going to make our image a lot smaller. Let it load. There it is. Super tiny. And now we have the option to define brush preset. So make sure you resize. And if your image is already that small, then you would actually have to get a larger image. The reason for that is that once you have a low quality image and you want to turn that into a brush, you're going to get some pixelated strokes. But if you have a larger image and you're resizing it, you are lowering the chances of your brush strokes being pixelated and kind of rough. Alright, now we will, before we make this into a brush, we need to make the edges look natural. Because we want to place this on, let's say, a illustrated table or on a regular table. So we don't want the corners just kind of ending there. So therefore, I will grab my soft round brush. You can get the color white, or you can just erase it and make a white layer before it, and try to erase as much as you can until it looks natural. So I will have to delete this entirely and just leave in the marble cracks. Try to make it really natural, or else it will look bad. So just go around and kind of remove the extra areas. Alright, so going to remove some of that. So there's my marble texture. I will go to Edit, Define Brush Preset, call this Marble. Hit OK, there's our marble stroke. Let's test it out on a white and black background. Let's start with the white. If I get my brush, hit B on your keyboard, hit it once, we have the black stroke. If you get the color red, it's the same thing, but red. Or another color, blue. It has all the textures of a marble. You can go ahead and do that on a separate layer and then lower the opacity to make it look more natural. As you can see, it looks a lot more natural. And if you want, you can actually rotate your brush to make a more natural placement like this. Now we have a really cool blue marble texture. Let's test it on a black background to show you guys how it looks. It looks pretty cool. Although on the black one, it doesn't make much sense because we do not have a black marble. And again, you can rotate your brush, adjust the size, and all of that. Now, we went over this a couple of times where we said that we cannot, let me choose something else. We cannot exactly make a continuous stroke because there's no spacing. It just looks like a weird 3D shape. All right, let's go back to where we were here. I'm going to go back to, I'll just make a new shape so I can make a shape that I might use. So let's say we want to make chains. So I'm going to hold down, make a point, hold down Shift to make a perfect straight line. Make one in the center and then kind of end it here because it is going to be continuous. Once we have this, we can go with our marquee tool or the lasso tool, whichever you like. Go to Edit, define brush preset, call this chain. Alright, I have my chain brush, but as you can see, when I try to place them next to one another, it does not look like chains. So we have to go into a new window. So go to Window, come down to, oops, not brushes. Okay, come down to Brush Settings. So Window, Brush Settings. You can drag it in here if you're going to need it. And now we need to go to, we need to add some spacing. So pay attention here. Make sure spacing is checked and just kind of remove, add space so they're kind of connected. Let's see, where should we keep it? You can draw it better so it looks cooler, but this looks kind of like a chain. And then we're going to go to Shape Dynamics. Check that, and then in Angle Jitter, go to Control, Pen Pressure. And close that off. And then in Control, go to Pen Pressure. Actually, we don't need to do it here, just Angle Jitter. And then once we close this, we now have a cool little thing. Although if you draw it better, it will look cooler. I just did this quickly. Just work around with the settings and see what works best for your shape. You can always go back in this or just bring it from the window. And if you go to, let's see if this will help. Close that. Okay, it doesn't help as much. It's okay. We still got a cool little chain that we can use. Once we hold down Shift, we can make straight chains. Maybe, let me undo that. We can do it on a separate layer. Lower the opacity, use another color. We can just do what we have been doing with any setting that we want, with anything that we can use on regular brushes. And if you want to delete any of these brushes, you can just right click, go to Delete Brush, confirm, and I'm going to delete these ones. Hit OK, remove the kite, it was not really that interesting, and the heart as well, trying to keep things clean. Alright, and if you don't like them, you don't like how they're sitting out like this, just go on one of them, right click, new brush group, call this customs, or you can do what you want and just drag it into the customs. Now, just like all of your other brush groups, you have your own custom group that you can add all of your shapes, your new brushes inside. So that is how you create your custom brushes. It was really simple. It will come in handy once you're trying to illustrate or you're trying to add textures to your Photoshop compositions. I hope you guys enjoyed this lesson. I'll see you in the next one.